Hello YouTubes. If you're looking to buy a large workshop air compressor, you've got two options. Option one, buy a brand new one, £2 minimum for like a 60 to 80 gallon tank. Or option two, buy a used one and refurbish it. Since I don't have £2 just lying about, and if I did, it would be getting spent in car parts, I'm going for option two, which is what I have behind me. This is an 80 gallon tank. It has the shelf at the top to house the motor and compressor. Obviously needs a bit of a rub down and some new paint. I've got a feeling it was maybe sitting in the snow for a couple of years, so it's going to have some surface rust along the bottom. I do need to check that carefully for any cracks, which I'll find out when I sand it all down. And at the bottom obviously is the drain plug, which I have snapped already, but that'll be one of the first jobs I do. All the other pipe fittings are intact. This is where the air comes out. I do have a rubber hose that connects that to the compressor. The little pressure gauge is firmly attached there, and there's the plate, which tells me that it was produced in 1979. So it's not as old as some of the tools I've got kicking about, like my vintage lathe over there. The other part of the setup obviously is the compressor and the motor. It's a 2 horsepower motor, and there's the plate there if anyone wants to see that. Just needs a little bit of modern wiring to go from the motor to the pressure switch up here. Again, it's mostly dirt. There's a bit of surface rust, as you would expect if it's been lying about for a while. And it's got a nice little oil pressure gauge there, drain plug. Now I know it sounds like I know what I'm talking about, but that's only because on the last video where I introduced this setup, you guys left a lot of comments, a lot of helpful information. So without that help, I wouldn't know what I'm doing. I still kind of don't know what I'm doing, but I'm learning. Before I spend any money on this, well, I've already spent some money, but I'll get to that in a minute. Before I spend any more money on this, I want to make sure that this motor and compressor actually work. So I'm going to install a plug, do some wiring, and just switch this on briefly to make sure that it works. It's not seized, doesn't make any horrible noises, and it actually pushes some air out of that hose there. Okay then, we are wired up. Now I've just wired it straight to the motor. It's basically 2 positives and a ground. So I'm bypassing the pressure switch. I don't need that at the moment because we're not building up pressure. All we're trying to do here is see if the motor rotates, turns this belt, turns that wheel, makes lots of noise and pushes some air out of that. Hopefully it's not going to bounce up and down like a mad thing. If it starts bouncing, then I'll switch it off and strap it down. Are you ready? I'm a wee bit nervous, especially because that belt has got big cracks in it, but as I say, this is really just to make sure everything works at all. And if this works, then I can go full steam ahead and get all the parts I need, new belts and all that. Anyway, enough waffle, let's switch it on. I'm going to stand over there where the plug is, just in case. This is going to be loud, so I won't be talking until I switch off again. Hey, here goes. Bit bouncy, but it's not that loud. That's awesome. That is really cool. Right, a wee bit bouncy, so I'll switch it on again. I'm going to check the oil pressure at the other side, and then we'll take it from there. I'll take you on this trip because I'm not quite so scared of it now because it's much less violent. In fact, it's a lot quieter than that silly little 20 gallon thing I've got. Whew, you can tell I'm excited. Amazing. So next step then, I need to get some nice new parts for it. I'm fairly sure the tank is going to be fine. Just a bit of surface rust. Everyone's paranoid. I will stick a boroscope down the inside to make sure there's nothing obvious, but I don't really think I'm going to be able to tell. Obviously, there's going to be a bit of surface rust in the inside as well, because it does collect moisture. Right, what did I buy that I mentioned earlier? I bought this. A very basic but heavy duty on-off switch. And I'm going to mount that near the garage door opener, which I switch off at night. So I'll switch off the garage door, switch that off, because if that fires up in the middle of the night, although, as I said, it's not nearly as loud as the other one. I'm so impressed that that's so quiet. Well, quiet's a relative term. Right, I need to go and do a shopping list and then find some money again. But it's really just belts, some pipe fittings. I'll do a list. Right, here's my list. Leave a comment if you think I've missed anything. Obviously, I need a regulator and filter slash lubricator thing. It's like two big valves with an adjuster in the middle. So I know where to get that. There's a good one on Amazon that's at a good price, and it's got fittings at either side, so that saves me in fittings. I need two belts because it's a twin belt config. I only need one fitting to reduce it from, I think it's about 3/4 inch coming out of the tank, so it needs to go from 3/4 down to half. Drain valve for the bottom of the tank, maybe a couple of pressure relief valves, rubber mounts for the feet, and concrete bolts, and some compressor oil. The oil looks really clean, but there's no harm in changing that, right? And then of course paint. I'll probably go for high temperature paint for the compressor side and just gloss colour for the tank. Haven't decided quite on the tank. I'll maybe just surprise you in that one. Okay, thank you very much for all your comments on that last video where I introduced this. I learned a lot in the space of 2 days, so thank you very much. Really appreciate that. I'll try and take on board everything that you've said. A couple of people are a wee bit worried about reusing an old tank, but I live dangerously. That's not what my wife said. Right, I'm off to Princess Auto and Amazon and everywhere I can get parts. So the next video on the compressor will be me refurbing, rebuilding, and seeing if it holds pressure. Take care, everyone, and I'll try to do the same. Bye. Oh, by the way, check this out. Spring has sprung. Let's build cars. Bye.